lifestyle, spirituality, with the intention of teaching women how to feel comfortable in their bodies, how to build a really good relationship with food and a positive mindset, and recognizing how what you put into your body affects your mental space. So I started that working with women on a one-to-one basis, and then I moved into some group coaching programs, which is what you just did, the 21-day detox program. And that's where we just have, 21 days of clean eating and mindset shifting and manifestation techniques and all sorts of things that people don't necessarily associate with food, but just recognizing that mind body connection. And
that's awesome. And when are you doing your next detox, if anybody wants to join?
April. Yeah, I always do. I try to do it every season. So the next one begins, I believe it's April 12th, whatever that Monday is. I think it's the second Monday in April.
Awesome. We will put it below for everyone to find and a link to join. Okay, awesome. So how did you get into this type of work?
A few different ways. Growing up as a woman, a female, and I have 3 older sisters. We're a very female-heavy family. I think just being in a society where there's so much emphasis on women's appearance and people wanting to be thin and look like, women in magazines. And thankfully, I think we've shifted a lot since I was a teenager and in my early 20s. But around my mid-20s, started really paying attention to my relationship with food and how what I put into my body affected my mood. And also just wanting to enjoy the experience of eating healthy food instead of worrying about calories and fat and counting things and diets and things like that. So just being a woman, I think most women have some kind of relationship with food, not always a positive one. And I really wanted to learn more about it and then take that knowledge and teach it to other women and help other women feel empowered in their bodies and also in their minds. So, being in control of what you're putting into your body and also the thoughts that you're thinking and the life that you're creating for yourself. So that was a big motivation for me. Watching my sisters and, then my nieces and friends and all kinds of women everywhere struggling with food and relationship with food. So that's kind of where it started. And then my work in the New York City public school systems, I've most of my career have worked with women and children in vulnerable communities, and watching and seeing and learning about the food that's available and accessible in those communities, as well as just habits. So I'd see kids coming to school with some really, unhealthy choices, like a big soda and, a bag of Doritos for breakfast, and then they're expected to sit in class all day and focus and learn, and processed foods for lunch. And I just thought, I need to do something. I need to try to have some kind of impact. And I applied to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which is where I became a board certified holistic health counselor. I applied for a scholarship that they were offering to actually principals who were working in schools. I wasn't a principal, so I sort of begged and pleaded my way in to say, like, I'm a counselor and I think I actually have more of an influence. And they gave me the scholarship. They awarded me.
Awesome.
Which was awesome. And I did the program and I learned so much. And through that, I was able to bring that work to my students and to the mostly single moms that I was working with.
I love that. My 2 I want to add my favorite thing from the detox is the shift of eating your big meal in the middle of the day first, and then having like a light meal at night. Like that's the one thing I've like super, super stuck with, because a lot of stuff I was already kind of integrating in my health journey. And then on the manifestation side, driftwood is like my favorite thing. Every time I see, a penny, I pick it up and I'm like, ooh, money's coming to me, driftwood. I just like everything becomes something positive. And I just love that concept. So I'm excited for other people to join and like learn those things. It's like those are my two biggest favorites.
Love that. I have a question for you. Were you surprised by the things that you took away from the circle?
Yeah, I was, because I think I shared with you in the beginning, I was like really hesitant just because of my own health journey and like the restrictiveness I've been on before. So I was super hesitant to just do any kind of restricting. So what I took away from it was how actually easy it was to really enjoy, and like it created like you said, a new appreciation for eating healthy. Just like I just felt so good. So I was like, oh, this is almost relieving in a way instead of stressful. And then yeah, the manifestation part was cool, about just kind of that concept I had never heard. And I just love that, like little kind of pennies from heaven coming to you at any moment. And if you choose to recognize it that way, it's like just like a little nice positive thing in your day.
Yeah, total mindset shift.
Yeah. So I was surprised. And I think like in a really good way, it wasn't like just like a diet or like anything like that. Like it was healing and fun and enjoyable.
Good, because that's definitely the intention.
Yeah.
I don't ever want somebody to walk away feeling like they were restricted in any way.
Yeah. No, I didn't. So, okay. So now I want to talk about family a little. So you're partnered up with a lovely guy and you wanted to build a family. Can you touch on what motherhood means to you?
Yes, I can.
I know it's kind of a big question, but
Motherhood is something that I have dreamt about since I was a little girl. I didn't dream about a big wedding. I didn't dream about, a white wedding dress. I didn't dream about any of that. I really dreamt about obviously finding my soulmate and starting a family and becoming a mom. So to me, it's my one of my biggest dreams fulfilled. Um, being able to nurture and love and help shape a beautiful human is just has been a really strong desire for a long time.
that's beautiful. That's so beautiful. Can you tell us about your individual family's journey?
Yeah, so it started with, like I mentioned, meeting my soulmate, Luke.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we were both living in the East Village in Manhattan, and we met actually just blocks away from our apartments. And, I had a feeling that night, I was like, not bad. And then we went out on a second date just a few nights later, and on that date he told me that he was adopted. And that really, I already kind of knew that I really liked him, but that the fact that he was so open about it, and also then went on to say that one of his dreams was to become an adoptive parent. He really wanted to keep the tradition of adoption in his family.
Mm-hmm.
He feels eternally grateful to his parents for the opportunities that they've given him and for the life that he's had, and also to his birth mother for making the decision to create an adoption plan for him because she couldn't care for him.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that was really important to him, and I loved that and was in 100%, even though it was only our second date. Like
Yeah.
knew that like this is something I can see with this guy. So we continued dating and obviously became more serious and moved in together, and then decided that we wanted to start creating our family. And we kind of had this idea that we would have one biological child and adopt one, um, sort of, or two or three, whatever. But that was like the loose plan. And we started trying to create our family first, through having a biological child, and that was proving to be difficult. We started fertility treatments because I wasn't getting pregnant, and a woman's biological clock, unfortunately, we do have to say, like, it is ticking when it comes to fertility.
Yeah.
So we started doing fertility treatments, and it was very trying. I went through several rounds of IVF, um, many transfers, embryo transfers, and finally did get pregnant, and then eventually miscarried. And at that
Mm.
sort of realized this is no longer the journey for us to creating our family.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was happening through the fertility treatments is that I was losing sight of all the things that I teach women about, like all the tools, staying present and staying present for the journey. I was so focused on the outcome. I was so focused on the outcome of becoming pregnant. I wasn't even focused on becoming a mom anymore. It was, am I going to get pregnant? Is this going to work? And so many, injections and doctor's appointments and specialists
Yeah.
and controlling every single thing I was putting into my body. And I felt very disconnected from my body. I felt very disconnected from my own, emotional state. I sort of forgot all of my tools. And then as soon as we decided that we were going to move on and start the adoption process, I really surrendered. It was like a big relief. And I quickly remembered all of these tools that I've been practicing for so long. And also, I wasn't injecting my body with hormones. So I do have to say that, that is a part of what happens when you're going through
Yeah.
fertility treatments. And some of that is really not in your control, how your body responds to these hormones. So I was finally starting to feel clear and back into my own body, and just surrendering to the journey of adoption, which is also not an easy one. It's an emotional roller coaster. I really had no idea what it was going to look like, but I had a supportive partner who was telling me all along the way, we're going to be parents no matter what. And that, to me, there was just so much relief in surrendering to the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And so we began our adoption journey.
Wow. um, so I think you kind of touched on this, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because there obviously must have been so many emotions during that time. And it's, then throw in fertility and hormones at the same time. So it amplifies everything. Like, how did you process it all?
That's a good question. I think once I was able to think a little more clearly, I I was able to stay present for the journey, knowing and trusting that whatever the outcome was going to be the best for us. I think it's a really hard concept to describe, and
Yeah.
also it kind of sounds like, well, how do you do that? And all of the work that I've been doing for the last 20 years, I really believe led me to this point where I could still live my life day to day and be present for other things in my life. And not to say that it wasn't all consuming, because it is very consuming when you're going through both processes, both fertility treatments or the adoption process. And also just choosing who I was going to lean on. And I have so much support, friends and family, and of course, Luke. So a combination of all the support in my life and just the mental preparation. I think that the 20 plus years of, you know, spiritual practice kind of prepared me for this very challenging time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did you go about researching options? Like, I mean, I can't even imagine where to start, you know?
Yeah, I really didn't know. So it was interesting because when I was doing IVF, I was right on top of it. I knew every single thing that I was supposed to be doing. I had researched, I had spoken to friends who had been through it. I, just was on it. And Luke sort of was like, what is this? What are we doing? You have to go to the doctor again? I was going to the doctor like 3 times a week before work sometimes.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It was a lot. And so when we shifted to the adoption process, Luke sort of took over. Our roles shifted a little, and he started doing tons of research. And neither of us really had a clue. I mean, he was adopted over 40 years ago in England. It was very different from adoption here in the States and now. So he started doing research, and then I started talking to different friends and finding out if I could speak with anyone who had been through the process. And I was really lucky that I was connected with a couple of people I still have not met in person to this day, who I spoke with extensively about the adoption process. And then quickly learned that, if somebody went through the process in California, it's very different than the process in New York. So then I had to hunt and find somebody who had been through it in New York. And I found someone, and she was really, really helpful. So talking to someone who had been through it was really like a pivotal moment for me. And then of course, Luke had found, an adoption organization in New York, and we started going to a couple of like adoptive parent support groups. And through that, we learned about a big adoption conference. So we went to that and just tried to gather as much information as we could.
Wow. Wow, that's that's also a lot. So you went from trying to get pregnant, insane schedule for fertility treatments, to this like whole other world of adoption, like
whole other world. And within,
thank God you do what you do. That's a lot. That's like, just hearing it, I'm like, wow. Like, I can't imagine the emotions going on. So now, if there are people watching this who are interested in adoption, is there one resource you suggest that people should start with?
I think depending on where you live. So let me just look at my notes. I wrote this down because I wanted to make sure I got it right. The name of the organization that we went through, adoptiveparents.org.
Okay. And we'll put it in your profile too, so people can look at it. But
that was a really good resource. That's where we learned about the conference, and that conference was really overwhelming.
I would imagine.
Really informative and really overwhelming. So it was from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Oh my goodness.
There were all different sessions you could go to. So you could go to, one session about people who had already been through the process. One session was about creating a profile book, because you have to like online dating, you have to create a profile book, which, except the difference is it's like 25 pages, and online dating is like, I like wine, cheese, healthy food, and yoga, and done. So it's a little more intense. But so Luke and I sort of divided and conquered. Some things we went together, sometimes things we went separately and took notes and compared notes and things. And but that conference was informative. The one thing that was a little defeating, I would say, is the people who would sort of hang around and talk about all the negatives that they had experienced until that point. And when you're brand new into it, at least for me, I wasn't ready to hear about that. Like,
Yeah.
I just wanted to focus on success stories. And I did the same thing with IVF. Like, my biggest advice to anyone going through this process is to find as many success stories as you can and stick to those, because it's so easy to go down a rabbit hole of really depressing stories. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean to be naive, and it doesn't mean just to wear rose-colored glasses and pretend that it's all going to be good and positive and easy, because it's not. But there is something to be said for filtering what information you allow into your mind. And I that's something that I also work with women on when I do the detox circles. You know, it's just, you do get to choose the information that you expose yourself to. And I think
Yeah.
that's a huge part of it.
I totally agree. And it's also like the power of positive suggestion, right? Like you, even though your IVF may or may not work out, if you keep something, positive from it, right? Something good will come of it then versus like always thinking about the worst case scenario. You don't want to give your energy to that.
Exactly. Exactly. And even though IVF didn't end up being the way that I, became a mother, I don't regret any of that, because every single moment, every injection, every doctor's appointment, every disappointment led me to my miracle babies. So I am forever grateful for all of those decisions.
Yeah.
How the universe lined it up, for me to end up with our perfect baby.
Yeah. And he is really cute. Okay, so after you've gone through kind of where you're going, you've got your 25-page profile book and all your, ducks in a row. Like, tell us about the adoption process after that. And also, were there other big hurdles? Like, you've already been through a ton of big hurdles with just your journey to get there. So were there more, or did it like flow? What happened?
So, every adoption story is really unique. So I just want to be clear that, like, when I talk about my story, it's very unique to our situation. We started the adoption process in November of 2019.
Okay.
And at that point, we chose to work with a private attorney. That was the very first decision that you have to make, is who are you going to work with, a private attorney or an adoption agency? And I mean, we could talk for another 2 hours about that, but ultimately we chose to work with a private attorney. We felt that that was just the right decision for us. It was somebody that was going to really just be there for us step by step and be accessible. I didn't want to have to like wait around here from an agency, which can happen sometimes.
Yeah.
So we had that first meeting in November, and then she basically told us a million things that we had to do to become certified to adopt. So, we had to provide medical backgrounds and criminal background checks, fingerprint, like all these things. Somebody had to come to our home to make sure that our home was suitable, and that's called a home study. So there's a lot of just paperwork and things that you have to do. And if you do it really fast, you can do it in about 3 months. Otherwise, it can take longer. So we were on it, and we did it in about 3 months. And so we were certified to become adoptive parents, whatever 3 months later is, December, January, February. And at that point, we also were working on our profile book, and we had somebody else that was helping us do that. We hired somebody that our attorney recommended to help us create a book that would really be representative of us, Luke and Kim. So it's like Kim before Luke, Luke before Kim, Kim and Luke together, it's really interesting and also really sweet because it brought Luke and I obviously going through all of this, we're very, very close, but doing this book it just brought us to another level. We
Mhm.
sort of designate times to work on it, and he would go in one room and I would go in another room, and then we'd come back together and to see what he wrote about me or what I wrote about him. It was just a really sweet time. We were able to, make it kind of fun, put music on, eat good food, and do this together so that it didn't seem so overwhelming. Um, and when all of that is done, and I mean, I'm of course skipping like a lot of details
Yeah.
as this could be a 4-hour
We
conversation.
just don't have time.
Um,
That's
we,
part two.
yeah, we wait for our attorney to contact us to say, I have a potential situation. That's one way that we might meet a birth mother. Another way is people put out actual advertisements, like a Google ad saying, we're Kim and Luke and looking to adopt our first baby.
Wow.
So we were prepared to put those ads out. We were just about to put them out. In fact, we had just paid for them when we got a call from the attorney saying, I have a potential situation that was separate from any advertising. And she told us about this woman, and she was 7 months pregnant. So she was pretty far along already. And this was now in April that we got
Hmm.
the call. And we told her, yes, we were interested. And she told us to send her our profile book. We sent it along, and eventually we connected. And she and I made a date to have a FaceTime call. Of course, now we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, like
So
right in the beginning. That's crazy.
yeah, so that was a little bit crazy. And but we started by FaceTiming. She wasn't in the same state anyway, so we couldn't have necessarily met in person right away. But we started building our relationship over FaceTime and then a lot over text, and agreed that, she chose us. She said, I feel like you guys are the right people to raise this baby. So
Hmm.
we were so grateful and hopeful, and scared because, and when you're going through the adoption process, the birth mother has the right to change her mind at any point, as she should. This is probably the
Mm.
biggest and hardest decision I imagine any woman having to make. So that's a little bit scary, but we felt
Yeah.
good and comfortable and confident. And we just continued to build our relationship. And that's kind of the way it started.
It's so
I,
beautiful.
yeah,
It's so beautiful. So you kind of answered some of the follow-up questions I had, but one of them is the birth mother and the birth father still a part of yours and Luke's lives, or is it kind of like a separate, or does that change based on personal preference between you and them?
it is a personal preference. So most adoptions now are open adoptions, meaning um, you have the option of continuing a relationship if you choose to. And it is encouraged if that's something that feels right for both sides. When we started talking with Lennox's birth mother and then eventually his birth father, we all decided that yes, we wanted an open adoption. We always want him to know who his birth parents are. And we had built a really strong relationship with them that we wanted to continue. They wanted to make sure that he was okay, that he was well cared for, and we agreed to have open communication and constant communication. So we send a lot of text messages, lots of pictures and updates, and especially around the holidays, and they really appreciate it. And we do hope that one day we will all meet again, for sure.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just so taken with your story. It's super emotional, but also super beautiful. And Like, I'm so impressed by how you handled it. So you definitely talked about this, but I'm going to talk about it again just to kind of bring us a little bit full circle. Like, in my experience working with you in the 21-day detox circle, there was a fair amount of surrendering to the process of the emotional and physical detoxification, right? And you talked about that word surrender before in a couple of the ways you answered the questions. Did you feel that since you had led and gone through these detox circles and your own spiritual journey of these experience multiple times, that it served you going through this super intense family building, fertility, and adoption process?
Definitely. I really do. I mean, there's no denying that going through fertility treatments and then going through the adoption process is very trying and really an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
But I do think that when I was able to tap back into all of the tools that have been practicing for so long, and some new ones also, that it helped. I mean, it just helped me connect. For example, like with Lennox's birth mother, being able to connect with her woman to woman and not be scared of the outcome. I think that had a huge impact on our relationship because
Mm-hmm.
we became friends, we became confidants. Like, she talked to me about things that she was going through. And it strengthened our relationship because I could just be present and not worry about how this was going to end for me.
Mm-hmm.
So surrendering to the idea of whatever is meant to happen is going to happen for the greatest good of all. When I could really remember and remind myself of that mantra, surrendering and trusting the universe to deliver what was best for the greatest good of all, that pushed me through.
Mm-hmm.
Really letting go of whatever the outcome was. um, I do believe that that's what got me through, and of course, having a really supportive partner is,
Yeah.
and I'm forever grateful for that. But the part of you that just needs to depend on yourself, being able to turn to that, turn inwards and remind myself of that concept of non-attachment, that really gave me the confidence to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
I
not lose hope. Like, I never, even through all of this, I really never lost hope.
Yeah, that's so important that you kind of saw the forest through the trees, as as my dad loves to say.
Yeah.
And just kept your eye on what like you said, the greater good, that it would be good for you and good for the baby and good for the mom. I kind of feel that all couples should do a 25-page book about themselves as like an exercise, because it's like you guys are so like strong now, like I
It was
love it.
pretty amazing because there were questions that you wouldn't necessarily think about if you weren't doing that.
Yeah.
So, around sort of like discipline and what's important to you, and, religion. I mean, people do talk about religion, but we had to get really into it.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we agreed on everything. That would have been a little upsetting if we were like worlds apart. But
Yeah.
for the most part, we did agree on most things. And yeah, it's like we have a little handbook now that we can reference.
Yeah. No, you guys have that. It's so great. Okay, so I think lastly, I'm just going to finish with like you and I before this interview talked about, I believe like have the right name, the Global Gift Registry. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So, okay, awesome. So we're going to collect any donations, anyone who's watching and is supporting this for them on your and our behalf and SameSide's behalf. How did you come to find out about this charity? What is the charity about?
So the Global Gift Registry is a charity that makes it really easy for people to provide essentials for women in vulnerable communities. So, for example, homeless women who are pregnant. You can donate money and supplies, diapers, formula, whatever it is, things that women really need when they're either pregnant or have just given birth.
Yeah.
Um, I learned about it through a friend who posted on Instagram, my friend Michelle Trotter. She posted something about it on Instagram, and it was right after Lennox was born.
Hmm.
And I was super already very like emotional. And I just thought, this is something I have to get involved with. When Lennox was born, like I said, with the adoption process, it's really scary because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. And the the birth mother has the right to change her mind. And she actually did change her mind right after he was born. And we were all at the hospital together. And then came back around and we all, you know, she decided that this was the right thing to do. But knowing that that's a possibility and that that does happen, it happens a lot actually. Like I think it's called a failed adoption.
Mhm.
Knowing that that was a possibility, it's not like I created a registry or we didn't have anything in our apartment. Like we just were not ready to make a whole room for a baby when we weren't sure if we were going to be coming home with a baby.
Mhm.
So I had the most amazing friends who created a registry for me and just said, let us know when you're ready and we'll hit send. It was ready.
Yeah.
And they, I mean, when we got home with the baby, we had everything we needed. And to think about women who are, in situations where they could be living in homeless shelters or, just don't have any support. This is an opportunity to give and to help provide for those women. And so when Michelle posted that, I started looking more into it and found out the founder is Jacqueline Nickelberry, and she's an amazing woman who's created this. Now it seems like it's just exploded, where it's based out of all different cities: New York, LA, I think Chicago, and a bunch of other cities. And that just really spoke to me. Also, of course, because of my work in the public schools
Mhm.
and working with a lot of women, single moms, 100% of whom were below the poverty level in New York City. This just spoke to me, and that's what I wanted to get more involved in.
Yeah, that's great. I'm grateful that you brought it to our attention because it's not a charity I was aware of. So I'm excited to connect with them and help in a small way that we can, you know? So
Yeah,
thank you for that.
thank you for that.
Wow, you have such a beautiful story. I'm so touched talking to you and hearing it. And obviously, I loved our program, and I'm excited about your expansion on that front for more detox circles and your work there. So, thank you so much for sharing with us today, for being vulnerable and open. And um, I'd like to give you the opportunity to add anything more if you'd like to. Otherwise, I think this was lovely. It was such a nice way to start my day.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I think the only thing I want to add is that, it's not an easy process. And I always wished that I had somebody like an adoption coach or somebody to help me
Mhm.
through it. So I really have made it my mission to help anybody who's going through it in the best way that I can. I can't say that I am an expert, but I've been through it and, I have some knowledge. So I'm really happy to talk to anybody who's looking for more information.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll put however, your preferred method of getting in touch in your profile too, so people can find you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
So
Talk to
nice
you soon.
spending some time together.
I know. I like it from different coasts.
Yes, New York, LA. Thanks.
Thank you.